ID requirement for voters is up for debate again. Republicans say it would reduce fraud. Democrats say it would block legitimate voters from voting. Could both parties be right, or could they both be wrong? Seth Kaplan live at the state capitol with the answers. Seth.
Dennis, the arguments we continue hearing in this state capitol are a lot like the ones heard in the capital of another key purple state for a decade, where Republicans got what Republicans here want.
Bring to the House a floor vote for a constitutional amendment to require voter identification at every election.
PA House Republican leader Brian Cutler again asking for what Republicans have long wanted.
Voter ID is an easy way to ensure eligibility, not unlike the ID cards we all show at a doctor's office or a bank. An ID is required for many of the things we buy and do.
Easy for most, but not all legal voters, worry Democratic leaders who say, quote, the Constitution grants rights, it doesn't and shouldn't take away rights.
I think Democrats genuinely are concerned that it is going to hurt their voters more.
That's public radio political reporter Steve Harrison in North Carolina, where Republicans got their wish, a voter photo ID requirement on the ballot and overwhelmingly approved by voters. The primary there earlier this month, the first statewide election under the new rules.
I thought it was really important after this first election, this first real test, to take a look and see what was the impact of this new law.
1.8 million people voted. 473 people turned away under the new law because they didn't have ID.
We looked closely to see who those 473 people were. 174 were Republicans. 171 were Democrats. There were just under 300 white voters and 74 black voters.
White voters rejected by a 4-to-1 margin compared to black voters in an election when they only outnumbered black voters overall 3-to-1.
So at first glance, there was no real disparity in terms of who photo ID was impacting.
And what about Republican concerns about fraud? North Carolina audited its 2016 election.
There was only 1 or 2 cases of in-person voter fraud, someone trying to vote twice or vote in someone else's name out of millions of ballots cast.
Now, Harrison conceded, just because you only know about 1 or 2 in-person cases of voter fraud doesn't mean there couldn't have been others, just as those voters who were rejected for not having photo ID might not be the only ones who weren't able to vote. Maybe some other people stayed home because they were worried or confused about the new voter photo ID requirements. But with both parties' concerns about the issue seemingly at least partly overblown, and with voters generally siding with Republicans on this issue, maybe Republicans were right about at least one thing they said here this morning, which is that perhaps this issue could form the basis for a broader compromise. Live at the state capitol, Seth Kaplan, ABC 27 News.